Hey there, welcome to my channel where I take you on tours of tiny and unique homes. So last week we published a really fun video where we decorated a tiny home for Halloween. And this week we're revisiting that same tiny home to give you a full tour. This tiny home has everything, including a downstairs bedroom and many luxury upgrades. It's definitely going to be one of the favorite tiny homes that we've ever featured on this channel. If you like these kind of videos, make sure that you subscribe and hit that notification bell so that you know every single time we publish a new tour. But right now, let's take a tour of Shelly's luxury tiny home.
Will you join me? Will you roll? Make this house our tiny home.
Hi, I'm Shelly, and this is my tiny house, and I call it the Tiny. I think I got interested in tiny homes by looking at YouTube videos and thinking they were adorable and more like a playhouse. I always wanted a playhouse as a kid and never got one. I think it was the kid in me that wanted to try it out. The real impetus was getting a divorce. I thought, okay, I don't know what the rental market is going to be like, so if I ordered a tiny house and found some property, I'd be more secure and live the dream of a tiny house. I moved into my tiny house the 1st of May of this year. So that's about 7 months. So far, I love living in my tiny house. I really like the simplicity of it and that it's just my space and I keep it just the way I like it, and it's very cozy. I will be able to sell the tiny house or possibly rent it in the future, so I think it was wise financially to do it this way versus rent, which you never get back. And this is my tiny house. It was built by Summit Tiny Homes in Canada, and it's 36 feet long, 8.5 feet wide, and it is a bohemian style of theirs that I tweaked a little bit. I really liked the shingles on the top, but I did a darker stain with the black, and in the summer it's been a little hot, but I think in the winter I'm going to reap the benefits of that. We did add this deck, which makes a huge difference. For Mother's Day, my family came together and helped put this together, and it's provided some dry entrance in and out the door, but also it's provided this outdoor space that has extended what the tiny house feels like inside to a bigger outside area, and it has made a huge amount of difference. So the roofing material actually really helps to let the light in so it doesn't block the tiny house. Also the view of the sky I just love, and I didn't want to shut that off, but yet it still protects the doorway as you go in and out. The little cutout here was part of the design. It does add some interest so that it's not just a wall. So I liked it. Also the windows, it kind of offsets them a little bit, and it's not quite as hot, I think, but it provides the light. Altogether, I think I spent about $137,000 on this tiny house. It wasn't a bad price given how expensive construction is these days. I felt like I got it's a quality house. It's so well built. So this is for my mini split, which is both the heat and air conditioning, which is a treat, and it's run by propane. And then around back, I have the rest of my utilities. Here's where my water comes in, and I bought a eco-friendly or safe hose to bring my water in so it's safe to drink out of. And then I have a typical RV hookup here that goes to the temporary pole over there. When I purchased this property, there was water to the property, although it hadn't been hooked up yet, and electricity that was not quite brought all the way down the conduit yet, but I had that hooked up along with the transformer that allowed me to be able to power my tiny house. Doing that was quite a process. It took a long time, and it was about $15,000, which was pretty costly. So triple axle trailer, and this is the vent for the composting toilet. It's a fan that runs all the time, and so no smell in the tiny house at all. And here I have 2 propane tanks. When one's empty, it'll switch to the other, and that is my oven and my heating. Now that you've seen the outside of my tiny house, let me show you the inside. Welcome inside. This is my kitchen, and it's pretty adequate actually for a tiny house. I think it has a really nice sink. I have ample storage, and I love my little mini oven. It takes like no time to heat up, and I actually have 4 burners, which is, I think, rare in a tiny house, and a nice fan and light over here to help protect the space and keep it nice and safe. I love my open shelves. It's kind of fun to display things. And I love my little unique fridge that's kind of this mini retro. It holds everything that I need, which I was a little worried about, and even the freezer is a pretty decent size. The countertop is actually butcher block. It kind of looks more like it's a fake wood, but it's real wood, so it can be sanded down if it has damage. What I like about it is not only the warmth and the prettiness, but it was lighter and cheaper than the option of like granite or other solid surface. And it matches the shelves, and I wanted a little more of the warmth of the wood throughout since there's a lot of white. So the shelves were part of their original design, and they did have one iteration where someone did put a cabinet here, but it really blocked off the space. So I opted to go with the open shelves, and I had intention actually of making them deeper and putting my plates there. But once it arrived, I actually thought the small shelves were adequate, and I fit my dishes just fine in this big drawer. Because I have a pretty good cabinet space below, it just wasn't necessary like I thought. I thought this dish rack was like perfect for the tiny house because it does slide out and becomes bigger. So you have a little more room for drying things, and then when you're done with it, you can make it smaller so it doesn't take up room. And it's, I can also move it out of the way a little bit more. I tend to keep it there because I just have to do my dishes every day since I don't have a dishwasher. I found this little rack at the thrift store, and I had thought about placing it here, but then I got the idea to hang it since I already had this all nice and tidy, and that gave me the idea to hang a couple other things like the spoon and the cheese grater, especially because that takes up a lot of drawer space, and it kind of looks cool, so it all worked. As well as like this I found at the thrift store, and it provided not only space for quick use utensils, but also it kind of looked neat because this already was built in there and needed something of interest behind it. So these cutting boards I got in northern Minnesota when I was visiting my mom, who has a cabin up there. What I really like is that they're the different stripes of different kinds of woods, but it worked out so perfectly to bring in the wood color of my shelves kind of down into the space. And the pantry, the slide outs, has been super great and really well proportioned because I've been able to fit things pretty well in there. Sometimes you have to, tilt things a little bit to pull them out, but I was amazed at how much food that I fit in here. And sometimes when I do buy things that will need to go in the refrigerator, I just start with them in the refrigerator even though I haven't opened them if this is particularly full. So it's kind of been a process of learning how best to do it, but I've been very impressed on how much this holds. So when I first was expecting the tiny house, I thought this space would have more room or be recessed to have a shelf and coat hook area. And when it arrived and I realized the door really opens right into this, I thought, okay, that's not gonna happen. But luckily, I was at a garage sale and found this. So you can have guests put their coats there, or if my coat is wet when I come in, I'm able to put it here until it's dry before I put it away. So that came in really handy. I love this little space up here to just hide some gloves and hats. So as you're going out the door, it's really convenient to grab those, as well as my keys, my sunglasses are stored here, or I put outgoing mail in these little slots. And it's kind of funny, I ordered this on Amazon thinking it was this much bigger thing. And when it arrived, it was so tiny, but it fit perfectly in that space. I didn't know what I was going to do for the table because what they had in their original designs I didn't really like. So I said, just don't give me a table, I'll figure it out when it arrives. And I was able to find this locally. It was just perfect for the space because it's a boat table and it has these leaves. Now we've cut the other one off because it was a little too big, but it allows me to have a bigger space but not have to need it up all the time. It goes up and down. It has a little rocker storage space in here that I have some napkins and placemats. I had to have a washer and dryer in the tiny house. I've lived in a trailer without a washer and dryer, and that was probably the only thing that I remember was a difficulty. So I did opt for having this. It does both, which is pretty convenient. It's very small, but it actually does a pretty decent sized load. And I have a line outside that this summer I've been drying my clothes on the line. Up here is pretty much my storage loft. It's a little bit bigger than like a twin size bed, but I use it for storage. And how I get up there is this nice little tucked in ladder. Drags out and so that it's at an angle, and it has this bar to hold on to so you can safely get up and down. And I put this plant here to block the view of the rest of the containers up here, but I have my off-season clothes up here, my suitcase, some extra shoes. I do have my stereo up here. And now we're moving into the bathroom. Has a little pocket door here. This is a bigger bathroom than they had originally designed, and I thought it was too small, so I had them actually make it bigger and take a little room out of the bedroom because I figured the bedroom is really just for sleeping. And I also had them add these shelves that I've stored some clothes in, so there was additional storage for clothes that way. But the shower is actually quite big and has a view outside. So what could be better than that? And it's luckily a private space, so it's not a concern, but it's a pretty easy shower to keep clean, but it's not too tiny in a tiny house. So I have a composting toilet. It's the Separate brand. Liquids go with the gray water, and then the solids get collected in a bucket that I empty once a month. There's no smell, there's no noise. It's actually been pretty easy, and I have really no complaints. And now we'll head into the bedroom. Again, another pocket door. This is a double-sized bed. I bought the headboard through Wayfair, and it's just a single headboard. I designed and helped build the bed, which has storage below it. It's got hinges that you can lift up, which provides a ton of extra room for clothes, because otherwise it would be pretty tricky to get all my clothes in this very small little closet here. In the original design, they wanted to put two, one in each corner, but I felt like it would impede me moving in and out, especially in the middle of the night. I really like how big and spacious it feels in here. And I think the only thing is I would not put that light there. I thought it would be too dark if I didn't have a light. And then I had these put in for reading, and I shouldn't have even had that light in there. That would be one change I'd make, and that's why I've lifted it up. So the flowers I ordered again off Wayfair, and it was a pre-made flower set, but you had to cut them out. That was a little bit tricky, but it was super fun to add a little bit of drama and contrast with the black and white, because I didn't want too much hanging there, because you do have to get over there to make the bed. Just the punch of something fun. I also have a neat saying on this wall that I wake up to, and it says, "Today I choose awesome," because every day we should choose awesome. So now we're on the other end of my tiny house where my mini split is, and that's my heat and the air conditioning, and it's run by propane. It's super efficient. It doesn't reach the bedroom particularly well, but I do also have heated floors. And since you're supposed to sleep best in a cool room. It works out okay. And eventually the heat does kind of get in this living space. I found this couch was modular and you can add pieces. So I can pull this over here and make an L. I can pull it forward just to stretch my legs, but it's also a conversation piece. And if I wanted to, I could take it out here and add a section to make it bigger. We did add this kind of like a floating desk, so that's where I sit and do a lot of my work. Sometimes I face this way, sometimes I face this way. I have my yoga ball that I sit on sometimes, or I can pull the kitchen table chair over and sit. So it's kind of nice to have options in a small space. So I have quite a bit of storage in my staircase. I even have this nice little shelf in here. I have the hot water heater here and some plumbing down below, but I'm able to put my recycling down there. And then I store shoes and a blender, and I even fit my juicer into the tiny house, but that has fit. And then in here's kind of my exercise stuff, my yoga mat and my weights and jump rope. And this step has games and some candles and stuff. So quite a bit of storage in this stairway. I love my plants. They're the only other living thing in my tiny house with me. And they also just add some color, but the fresh air exchange that they give and the beauty of them, of course. And then it also was just nice to have something to line the stairs with. And I do have to point out my round window because I did add that. And I really love the round window and get a lot of comments about that. So up we go. This is my bigger loft. I anticipate working more up here in the winter when it's going to be cozy and warm. But this is kind of my office space, but in the summer it's pretty hot up here. But I had my first overnight guest this weekend. It was my daughter. And so I brought this is actually a queen size mattress topper. So you can see it fits well with still even space. And so she said she loved looking up at the stars because the skylight up here really adds a lot of light up here as well. So, and you can look through into the tiny house, which is kind of a fun view. The tiny house is definitely a fun adventure, but it is a means to an end. I am in the process of building a prefab house on this property that I purchased. So in deciding where the new home will go and where the windows should face and all of that, it's really been great to be on the property. The plan is to enjoy the tiny house until that time. Things aren't going super fast, so I could be in the tiny house for another year or so before I get to move into the other house. I love houses and I love making spaces. So going tiny has really helped me to get organized, declutter, and just get the bare essentials. I decided to start a business around helping people downsizing from either a big home to a small home, or other people that are, empty nesters, getting things to be simple because it does open up more time and money for you to do other things that you really enjoy.
Thanks for watching this week's video. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you soon with another tiny or unique home tour.